Welcome to technology, people. Okay. So we wanted to start at the beginning in terms of community work and understanding what your community groups might want in terms of getting online. So I wanted to sort of highlight a tool that we'd used during Smartline. We used and developed a tool called the Guided Conversation to help us understand what our communities wanted in terms of individual support or group support. So the Guided Conversation, it was a tool we developed to engage the participants in a detailed conversation about their health and well-being. And from that, we developed action plans for either individuals or communities if we found that there was a theme in the community. So
Karen, sorry, can I just stop you? Your screen is still showing the menti.com.
Oh,
I think it's jumped back to it. It was showing your PowerPoint.
Has it? I don't know why that is. Right, hang on.
You might need to close it.
Get rid. Yeah. Right, let me try. Can you all see my PowerPoint now?
No, it's still back on the Menti. You might need to actually close the window, I think.
Actually close the window.
I think every time it pops up. So
how are we looking now? Oh, now it's stopped screen sharing. Welcome to Digital Technology 101.
I'm going to sing some Hobbit music while there.
Yeah.
You've got it. Perfect.
Can you see it? Excellent. Right. So we wanted to make our guided conversation visual, and it had to be led by our service users. We didn't want to be prescriptive, but we did know that we wanted to focus on health and well-being outcomes, because that's what Smartline is all about. So you can see that we developed these spidergram type things, and we had a couple of these, and the first one was about the individual. So we wanted to find out how people were feeling about themselves in these kind of themes, and they could score themselves out of 7 being I'm amazing and 0 being actually not great. What we did was ask them a question that was open. We didn't want to lead because we wanted any outcomes to be led by the individual. So we would say to somebody, how do you feel about your exercise and recreation? And they would score themselves and so on. And if they wanted to, they could elaborate on those things. And that would enable us to compile information to give a better outcome for that individual at the end, which I'll explain in a second. So we'd look at the pinch points. So we'd look at the lower scores on the spidergrams once we'd finished, and we'd say, right, okay, you scored quite low on emotional well-being. What is that? You scored low on exercise and recreation. What is that? And people might say, well, I don't get out very much. I like walking, but I don't know where to go and who to see. So basically, from a conversation, we have the potential to be able to signpost, refer people, or create community groups if we find that more than one person in an area is saying these things. So we have the individual needs. And then we go on to the community. So what we found when we were asking about the community, we'd look at the pinch points again, and we'd be able to see whether there were themes between Mary, who lives at 22, and Bob, who lives at 27. And we, for example, found that green spaces was a big thing that came up. For a few people in one area of Camborne, they weren't really happy about the lack of green spaces around them. They knew that there was an old piece of land in the corner over there. We'd really like to do something about that. So what we were able to do is identify a theme and a need within the community, and then develop a project based on the needs of those people. It's all a bit, we focus lots on the pinch points, but also it's really important to celebrate the positives. So where we're identifying people in communities that are scoring themselves quite high, they're quite resilient in terms of their own sort of health and well-being, and actually they're quite confident as a person within their community, we can then look at utilising those skills to support projects. So if you've got Susan, who loves baking and bakes twice a week. Okay, is Susan somebody that might help us to develop a project if we've got people that like baking but aren't too confident? We've got David, who loves gardening. Can he become a key point in our new gardening project? So it's about thinking about utilising skills as well. So if you wanted to use a tool like this, you could adjust your themes around the edge and your questions to suit the needs of your service users, your project or your organisation. And a guided conversation tool can certainly help you to do that. And we can certainly support you to develop your own guided conversation tool if that's something that you're interested in using to help you create a project. Important to say that whenever you have a guided conversation, it is likely that you are going to have things come up that you weren't expecting. So making sure that you have a toolkit of places to refer to, sources of support and information and guidance is really useful. So you may have to look at your own training and your organisation's own training and sort of information and advice networks before you go doing guided conversations. I just wanted to highlight the things that came out of ours in terms of top level stuff that came out. So we had loads of people signposted to volunteer opportunities, loads of people wanted coffee mornings, and they've probably been the biggest success from Smartline, and you'll hear about something else we've done a bit later on. IT training and support, ironically, or not so, was a big one. So you may find that there's an expectation of, yes, I do want to get online, but I don't really know how to do it, what I can use to do it. I'm frightened to do it. So there's potential to have a need to do training. So you've had your conversations, you kind of know what your group and individuals want to do, but you're not actually sure what, once you get online, what it is you are going to do. So I wanted to highlight a fantastic resource called the Virtual Village Hall. And this is an offer by the Royal Voluntary Service. And the website's up there for you, and you will get this presentation afterwards. But I just wanted to give you a whistle-stop tour, really, of the Virtual Village Hall. You could use this in a number of ways. So you could use it as inspiration for yourself to develop projects. You could arrange a time online. Kate and I were talking about this, to meet a group of your people and do some sessions on the Virtual Village Hall together. So I'm just going to take you through a couple of things. You'll see there's loads of different areas. So we've got cooking, exercise, being crafty, mindfulness. So if I click on cooking, you will see that there are sections for each thing. So we go down to the section and click on it. Then within this, we have a ton of different resources. So you can, let's do cakes. Come on, internet. And it will take you through to different things. So it might be how to cook a cake, or a crumble, how to make sugar paste and cover a cake, how to bake bread. So loads and loads of different things. And by clicking on this little house here in the top left corner, you will get taken back to the main village hall. If I just click on Get Moving, this is fantastic. Oh, there we go. There is a load of different things in the Get Moving section, from armchair exercise classes to dancing to drama skills and sports. There really is, and proper workouts, yeah. So there really is an array of things to look at. So I will let you, in your own time, have a good look through the Virtual Village Hall. It is completely free. It's a fantastic resource. Even if you have regular meetings with people online and you want to mention it for them to go and have a look at, we know some of our groups have certainly gone and done that and utilise it. It's worth mentioning. Any questions that have come up in the chat, James? I'm going to stop sharing.
Just one question, actually, but I think I answered that one. So are the guided conversations to A, B, C, D essentially it's a different product to gain information about communities in a really bespoke way to that community. So the guided conversation is built for that specific community. And so it's a separate product in its own right. There are quite a number of these tools to gain information about communities, the health, the well-being about communities. There are a number of products out there. The guided conversation is one, ABCD is another. There's My Claw, which is one based up in Somerset, actually. So there's a number of these tools that you can use to understand well-being or health or community assets as such. They differ in different ways, but that's, I think, the only question. Oh, we've got a few more questions coming in.
So I'll answer Caroline's in that, no, you can't set up your own virtual village hall there. It is a standalone resource, but there's nothing to say that you can't potentially do that kind of thing. And Stephen, you might touch upon resources and having things in places in a minute when you chat. So watch this space, but not on the virtual village hall.
Shall I answer Sally's one?
Yeah, go for it.
So Sally's asking a question around, is there an opportunity to create Cornwall's version of that? Essentially, yes, Sally, there is. There's those opportunities. So Smartline can support enterprises to create new products and services. So if anyone's got any really key ideas like this that is digital and it impacts health well-being, then do let us know. We have some other workshops around social enterprises, so funding for social enterprises. I've got a workshop coming up, so we've got all of your details, and you'll be notified of those as and when they come through.
Yeah, worth mentioning the Cornwall link as well as a resource to go and find out what's happening in your area, and that will be touched upon later, so I won't go into too much detail about that. But thank you for your questions. So moving away from me now, we're going to head over to Stephen Roberts from Coastline, who's going to chat a little bit about how they've managed to get their customers getting more digital. And I will hang around in the chat to answer questions if I can. But over to you, Stephen.
Lovely. Thanks, Karen. So good morning, everyone. Myself and my colleague Sally are here. We're going to talk about what Coastline's been doing over the last 12 months, really. So I've got a presentation, so I shall endeavour to share my screen with you all. Okay, is everyone seeing the Click and Connect presentation?
We can see that clearly. Thanks, Stephen.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, so my name's Steve Roberts. I am a community navigator at Coastline Housing, part of the community investment team. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Coastline Housing, we're a housing charity working across Cornwall, and community investment is a very important part of what the organisation does. So it's a recognition that there's a huge benefit to investing back into our communities. And obviously that means, you know, essentially our customers, but also the wider communities that our customers are part of as well. So that's what myself and Sally and my colleague Justin and B do on a regular basis. But today I want to talk to you about this project that was started by my colleague at the very start of lockdown, really, called Click and Connect. So it was a bit of an innovative solution to lockdown. I'm going to talk to you today about why we chose to go online, some of the challenges we faced, the strengths of the project, evolution from that, really, what's come out of that, what our learning has been, and then what's next for the project. So that's the kind of the content of my presentation this morning. So what is Click and Connect? Well, essentially it's an online platform that has been created by Coastline and working with Smartline as well, to bring together our customers in order to help alleviate some of the feelings of social isolation, and then what's leading on to that was, obviously, we all know, some of the mental health difficulties that have come from that isolation. What we found was happening was a lot of our customers were not connecting and wanted to feel what they were connecting with other people. You know, it's probably the most human of our parts of our human nature, isn't it? That wanting to connect with people. So there was lots of conversations going on online on like Facebook, our Facebook communities page, And we thought actually be a really good way to kind of capture some of that and to actually put that in perhaps in a slightly different environment. So lots of conversations happening on Facebook, and then we went, okay, actually, is Facebook the best platform to do this? Probably not. So we have invested in a platform by a company called FlexMR, and essentially they've put together, it's a market research tool really, but we've kind of changed the use of it. So we're now looking at using it to actually share information and share our customers' interests. So I mean, basically, why did we decide to do it? Why online? Well, it was our only option at the time. You know, it was a very pragmatic approach to going, well, we've got lots and lots of involved customers. We've got lots of people who want to be together, want to share information, and it kind of worked on our theory of, you know, this asset-based work, but doing it remotely. And a great phrase by my colleague here, Justin, is going where the energy was. So we saw there was a lot of conversation on Facebook. So, you know, it was a case of, right, okay, how can we capture it? How can we move it on? And for us as an organisation, it's a great way of having informal connections with customers. Obviously, we're an organisation that's led by our customers. It's very important to us that we hear customer voice very strongly in the organisation. So this was another opportunity for us to build on that, if you like, and then create sort of multiple means of communication. So some of the challenges we faced were some that we all face: skills and competence in using IT, essentially. And if you know Cornwall, will know that our demographic is quite an old one. You know, quite a lot of older people in our demographic, and those people, you know, are often not being given the opportunity to develop their skills on, you know, online. So what we've partnered with Smartline. They've been fantastic in providing kit and getting people online. We've also used the Coastline Hardship Fund to provide kit when needed. Us as community navigators have been trying to support people online alongside our colleagues from Smartline, who've done some sterling work in supporting some of our customers to get online. Home visits when we could do that, sort of pre or in between the periods of lockdown. And also we have a digital volunteer. We have a large bank of volunteers at Coastline, and one of those is a digital volunteer who leads on that. So he's been fantastic in being able to engage with people in a slightly different way than perhaps we could. Other Click and Connect users, other people on the platform have been supporting each other, so that peer support's been really important. My background's in teaching education, and I always think it's peer learning, I think, is where it's at, essentially. It's quite difficult if you're an expert in something to understand and remember the challenges that people may face in adapting to using technology, which for us possibly is, you know, become second nature, particularly over the last 12 months.
I was just going to chip in about the challenges there, Steve, as well. What we found is a lot of our older customers had a lot of fear as well around getting involved online. I think there's a real sort of barrier there, being frightened of what it might involve, being frightened of breaking it, all that kind of thing. So we had to sort of work through those barriers as well. And it's a case of chipping away, and you'll see later some of the successes and the results of that.
Yeah. So obviously, there's been a lot of talk in terms of the digital divide getting greater in this country, and it certainly has, and it's been highlighted by COVID and the various lockdowns you've had, and there's been an unequal effect, I think, upon some of those people who might be seen as vulnerable in our community. So we've tried to reframe that vulnerability and saying, you know, actually there is a huge strength in communities. And what we want to do is provide a place where people can support each other in a very positive way. And we felt that possibly Facebook was not the place for that. So again, you know, offering new interactions at time of social separation, And really for us as an organisation, which is trying to move to a digital by default way of working, it's trying to encourage our customers to become more digitally confident. We have an app called My Coastline, which means that customers can log in via their phone, tablet, or whatever, and can report any issues with their house, antisocial behaviour, and customers tell us that the response times they get through using our app based system, My Coastline, is much better than it is going through our normal traditional ways of phoning up, then that information being put onto our CRM. You are interacting directly with the team who are responsible for your repair. And obviously then, as we've all come used to these days, you get an update as to say when you repair might actually happen, who's coming. So we've been really trying to move towards a digital agenda. And I hate to say that, the phrase is the silver lining of COVID, because there is no silver lining. But one of the things that has come out of it is there has been a move to increase digital skills. And what will happen after this is that I think that digital learning will not go away. That's going to remain there. And so we're dealing with a range of customers who are much more digitally literate, which can only be good for them and ultimately good for us. So what we did was we put together this idea of a forums, if you like. People could put their own hobbies, interests on there, and we tried to group people together, rather like Karen said earlier, identifying themes, topics, and we'll show you some of those later. And out of that, we've also born a coffee morning, which we hold on Zoom on Wednesday mornings at 11 o'clock. So having it at the same time every week has been really important. We've been told by customers they really want to keep that. Karen has been kind of co-hosting with ourselves. And it's very informal, it's very relaxed. And it's actually a great place, great fun place to be. But what we're doing through all of that is we're actually encouraging customers who've not engaged with us digitally to actually get involved, because it's a fun place to be. They want to be there. There's a real reason for interacting, other than just a sort of functional, I can report my repair this way. But the whole team, including the Smartline team, have had to work very hard in getting some of our members, some of our customers on board with that. But it's been great. So we've had topics. We talk about food a lot, inevitably, music, local history. We had a colleague from Crescent Kerno who did a talk about local history, which was amazing, which led other members then to go off and do some local history themselves. Karen then organised a series of local history lectures, if you like, by our colleague, which garnered interest. Say family heritage, animals, pets, just as you would if you was having a coffee morning, really. It's been a very sort of informal space. We're getting to the point now, it's becoming very customer-led. At the beginning, the professionals in the room, we had to kind of lead a lot of it, but actually now we're sitting back and just going, hello everyone, how are you? And we sort of sit there and contribute little bits and pieces into the conversation, but it's very much customer-led, and that's where we wanted it to be, really. Not a professional-led discussion. Very diverse membership. We've been seeing new members every week, new people coming along. So we had some guest speakers. And fantastically for the customers and for us, we've had a number of our executive team and board members drop in. We have regular attendees from the board who drop into those coffee mornings. And I think the customers feel it's great that they can communicate with the executive team and with board members in that very informal way. I'm very new to Coastline, worked alongside them for many years, but I've always been struck by the lack of sort of a hierarchy, the lack of formality, and the ability to talk to managers. And I think that's great for colleagues and great for our customers as well. You can speak to people and develop those relationships.
One or 2 minutes left, Stephen, if that's
okay.
All right.
Yep. So this is the Coastline Conversation platform we use. and we have a number of forums on there which people contribute to. As an example, we have things on books and reading, pets and animals, cooking, bakery, jigsaws. Some of those topics have been better supported than others, but that's been led by the customers, not by us. So if they're not interested in those things, don't want to talk about it, it's not interest. It's not up for us to leave it there. We'll take the forum down and they can replace their own, and they can add their own at any time. Just note, hates to note that my name is the last one on sport and exercise. Not claiming to do any sport and exercise myself, but happy to post on a forum about it. So the feedback I've had is the coffee mornings are vital for my mental health. It's a highlight of the week, and they feel more confident using Zoom. These are all things which are falling out of that really, but we're mightily pleased that mental health has been increased for for those people coming along. So lessons learned. Basically, we've had to put a lot of time into this as a group of colleagues. We've created content initially, but we're stepping back now. It's not our place to be the voice of that platform as someone else's. And again, it's a sense of sort of belonging, having a safe place where they can be, which is really important to our customers, so that they're not frightened off by being on Facebook. We all know that can be quite a hostile environment at times. And also we're using it to learn new skills, share education, share knowledge in that peer learning thing. And again, it's been very organic, which is our style of work really. It's being led where the energy is. So what's next? So now, fantastically, we can get together soon. So we'll be doing in-person events based on some of those themes identified. We're growing the membership of it. And one of the things I'm really quite keen to do is measure the social value outcomes and social impact in terms of trying to put some monetary values to it as well. I've got a questions slide there, so I don't know if there's any questions from James. I'll pause for a moment.
Thanks, Steve. That was really good. Just a note, so this webinar is for everyone from just somebody that's trying to make a community group themselves or running them, to large organisations like Coastline. And so some of the questions are based around that, actually, Steve. So I know it wasn't you that procured the platform itself from FlexMR. Are you aware of how expensive that product is?
I am, yep. I'll be happy to share that. I think privately between us and so that's because obviously but it was. I suppose we'd see it as a good investment, but I mean it's quite a large investment. But beyond being able to host the Click and Connect forum for us as well, it will also have a fantastic ability to really understand what the needs of our customers are better as well. We will be using it as a marketing platform as well as this, this social thing. So it's got two elements to that. And I think once we start looking at the value that's, creating, it will be a very sound investment. But yeah, I would happily have a conversation with someone about how much that costs. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. And Kate also mentioned that coming on to the Kate's sessions later on digital tools, Kate will actually mention some free versions of other types of tools that maybe if you haven't got the budget like Coastline have, that you can use a free tool that Kate might mention some of those things later on.
Great.
Any other questions we've got here? Have a look. We've got how many users have used the Click and Connect platform, Steve?
I think we're up to just under 50 users at the moment. We've taken a very slow approach to it. What we wanted to do was to make sure that we had the right tone, the right kind of topics on there before we put it out to a large group. We were advised by another housing association who's done this to say, don't start spreading the word massively at the beginning, because what you do is you'll end up with hundreds and hundreds of users, but actually very few contributors. So what we've got is a smaller group of people signed up to it, but those people who are signed up to it use it a lot, use it frequently. So we will be developing this, but we're doing it very slowly because we want to make sure that it's right before we launch into a massive program of promotion and getting loads of those people signed up to it as well. So that's the way we tend to do business, is that very kind of organic development. So, and obviously, you know, we've not really had the chance to go out and talk to people in our communities. You know, so what we're looking forward to is going to say, okay, well, you've got issues, you've got, you know, something you want to talk about, come on our platform. That's the place to tell us, because not only will you speak to me and Sally as community navigators, but you'd also probably have to speak to Alistair, our CEO, you know, and he'll listen to you as well. So it's a great opportunity. So yeah, you know, we've started off small, but wanting to do it that way, really, just to make sure we get it right before we start rolling it out.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. We've got a couple more questions, but we'll come to those either at the end or we'll respond to them after the event.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yep.
So thanks, Steve, and back over to you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, James. So we're now going to pass over to Kate from Cosmic. And Kate, I'll let you explain who you are and what you do, because you're fabulous at it. So over to you, Kate.
Lovely. Thank you, Karen and James, and a big warm welcome from me. As Karen said, my name's Kate. Most people call me Cosmic Kate, if that helps you remember my name. And I'm Joint Chief Exec of Cosmic. We're based just over the border in Devon, but we work across the Southwest. And if I can just share my screen, we'll just get started if I can. This is such an interesting topic to be discussing today. So I'm really pleased to be here sharing my thoughts with you as well. So as I say, we are Cosmic. We're a digital skills organisation. We're really passionate about supporting digital inclusion across the piece, and we're more than ever passionate about supporting that 7% of people who are still totally offline. And also, though, the 16% that are unable to use it by themselves. And also the 77% of over 70s who have very low engagement in this area. And also the 33% of people on universal credit or vulnerable adults that have very low engagement. And that's really our area of passion and that we want to support and work with. And so today, the things that I'm going to share with you, I hope will also, you'll be thinking about all of those people and how we can engage and develop those going forward. We also are involved in the Positive People programme. I know you've got this in Cornwall as well. And just these are some of the things we've been doing during lockdown and during this kind of COVID environment to encourage some of the activities and support. And as I say, I'll share some more of these as we go forward as well. So really what I want to kind of address today is this issue that this is what happened, wasn't it, this time last year? We were suddenly hit by a cannonball or wrecking ball that came to us and said, right, we've got to change the way we do stuff. And we've actually started to coin a phrase in the digital world called the Great Unfreezing, which is this notion that for organizations, we suddenly got to a point of going, think decisions that would take us before 2 years to decide, we decided in 2 hours, didn't we? And we just cracked on with it. But actually, we also saw that happened to individuals too. And this came out of Lloyd's recently, saying that actually there was a 51% uplift of people registering for online banking during that time. And that has continued as well. So one of the things that we've seen is actually that 16% of people unable to use the internet by themselves have actually driven those skills and driven the need for skills during this COVID environment in a much greater way than maybe we have given them credit for in the last few months. So that's just something to bear in mind. But what we're going to talk about first before the break is digital communications. How can we communicate and engage with people online, regardless of their age and what they do? And this is what we call the digital communication or community engagement model, which is the concept of just 5 key things that we need to think about within our organizations. And I'll run through these as we're talking today, and I'll do it as quickly as we can. But we're going to talk through websites, e-newsletters, social media, video conferencing, and content development and interests and activities. So those are the kind of 5 pieces that we see as really foundational for all our organizations to have at least considered and purposely rejected, or actually considered and actively using to be engaging online. The first thing I'm going to talk about is websites. Don't all disappear and don't think this is going to be boring, because it's such an important piece. It's so important. And often people say to me, well, actually, why should we be interested in this stuff when social media kind of does all of this? Well, actually, no, websites still have a really central place in this world now. And the reason for it predominantly is it is your only place that you can determine your own content and your own interests. So it's a place where people always come back to for your reputation, your authenticity. If you go for funding, it's where funders will come to. If it's new people who've never met you before, they come and do a little bit of a check for you. So going back to your website, if you haven't got one, or if you're going to get one, thinking about actually creating that reputation piece is what this is all about. So spending a bit of time reflecting on yours, how good does it look? How clean is it? What information does it share on there? Is a number one thing to do. Because keeping it simple is really, really important. Thinking about, actually, do people know they're in the right place? There's many websites I go onto, and actually there's just loads of information that's just been chucked at the homepage. Actually, most people go onto your website just to find your contact details, or to sign up to something, or to click on something. So even if you can't afford an expensive website, get some funding to get that happening, actually having a basic website is really important too. And here's some basic ones that we can use. So we can use Wix, Weebly, Squarespace. These three sites are ones that we can build in an evening, over a few days, quite quickly, to get something going. Weebly has a free version. It has a bit of adverts on it, but it has a free version. The other two are reasonably low cost, and they really can be built without you having to do too much or have too much knowledge within this space. But as I say, having that central location where people can always come back to, that has full of your communications and your interests on there, are one of the most important things to do. And also you can build your own using something like WordPress. This is a great site if you've got a little bit of technical skill and you're able to start this stuff using WordPress, and using this site that gives you that kind of guided piece can be really useful too. So those are some options for you just to get going with that piece. What do we want to put on our site? Well, we can put on lots of things. We can put on all of our main communications, any annual reports we've done, any evaluations, but also it's a place where we can get information coming into us. So things like forms and requests, all of those kinds of things we can put on our sites. But we can also think about that piece around that new visitor. When they come to your site for the first time, what do they want to see? What do you actually do? And what are you providing? Those are the critical questions. The more content you put on the site, the more that Google will love you. So thinking about more pages, what's what we call spider food, more information, all of that stuff will start to build that reputation, so that if anyone is idly Googling coffee morning or something like that, coffee morning in Bodmin, you want your site to appear so that you're engaging people within that local area. If you've already done your site and you've got a site that's good, coming back to Stephen's point around forums, the next step is to think about things that are more community driven within there. And this is a fantastic software platform that you can use called Tribe. We can use it for free as a platform for up to 500 engaged people. And so you might want to think about developing something similar to Coastline within that space and have a go with it. But as Coastline have realised, and as most people realise with forums, it's actually easy to get the technology piece right. It's actually harder to get the engagement. And actually, that's the piece that takes lots and lots of failed attempts to get right. So something there that's really worth considering. But if we do get it right, it can become incredibly powerful. So just thinking about that next step would be a useful one. The next thing I just wanted to pick up there is e-newsletters. Now, often when I talk to people about e-newsletters, they say, okay, you know, it's just too much like hard work, or actually nobody reads them, and those kinds of things around e-newsletters. But actually, they still have the best return on investment out of any digital marketing that we do. So it is something that's worth really considering. Most of our users, other than that 7%, most of our users have email. In fact, for older people, email is a key form of communication. Now, our younger people aren't so interested in email, and actually under 17s often don't have an email account. But actually, those older people, they see that now like letters. So e-newsletters can be really powerful. And around about 1 in 4 people will open it. And actually what we've seen during COVID is people are opening e-newsletters more than they did before because they want to stay in touch. But also bear in mind that other than the older group of people, most people open their e-newsletters on a mobile device. So making sure that it is mobile compatible is important. So when we're talking about e-newsletters here, what I'm not talking about is sending something necessarily from your own email address, because generally that will be caught in spam, or also you might get blacklisted by some of the email places. So I'd always advise you to use one of the systems that are available there. The two kind of leading ones, MailChimp and Constant Contact. Those are the two that are key there. MailChimp is free up to 2,000 users, and you can just have one audience within that piece. Constant Contact, I just made some notes over here, which is why I'm looking over here, is £10 a month. But actually Constant Contact has some really great features as well. So have a look at both of those and think about which one might be best for you going forward. What should we include in our newsletters? Well, actually, one of the most important things about newsletters is how often we're going to send them. Everyone gets too excited about newsletters and thinks they're going to send them every month. And then we realize how much effort goes into it, and then we sort of slow down. So almost thinking about, do I do this quarterly or do I do it every other month? But think about that and actually ideally let your subscribers know how often that's going to be there. One of the critical things I think with newsletters is who it's from. When someone opens their email, they will see the name and the subject heading there. Now, I received one from a charity in Devon, and it says it comes from Pauline. Now, I've got no idea who Pauline is. I've got another one that comes to me that says it's from Office. Got no idea who Office is. So just making sure that your mailing address is something that makes sense to people who haven't thought about you for a few months is a really important piece for that opening rate. Try to think about only including up to 4 items of content, something that's helpful, something that's about your client group, i.e. not about you, something that's about a promotion, so an event or something that's happening, and then ideally something that has some insider news, something that's behind the scenes. That combination tends to work quite well because people will come to it and come back to it, particularly if there's something helpful in there. So really kind of thinking about crafting that piece, knowing who's going to do this, trying not to let it be a big deal within the organization, but keeping that consistent approach to communication can really build trust between you as an organization and your clients. And particularly if you're going to run a forum, a newsletter is absolutely essential, because that's the way that people keep getting that feedback loop and that reminder to come back into that space. If you're going to get a bit more advanced with newsletters, think about what we call segmentation, which is really simply just splitting your email addresses up into things that interest them or a particular way that you're going to communicate with them. So for some of you, it might be in terms of age, it might be in terms of activities, but it might be just in terms of whether they're new subscribers to you or older subscribers to you. And also think about automation. There's some really, really cool stuff that you can do both within MailChimp and within Constant Contact, where someone signs up to your e-newsletter straight away, then they'll get some automated emails coming from you for a period of time. So let's say over 3 months, you could build some emails that automatically go to them that start to build that touch point. And again, build that trust between you and them. So think about that's a one-off effort, but actually can create a really good relationship online. Also think about you could send something for their birthday or an anniversary or something within that space that again creates that trust. I've just put a little screen capture there to remind me to say there's also a great organisation called Zoom Mail, which is based in Plymouth. That's a new product that also might be worth looking at as well. And I believe they give some good charity rates. So it might be worth, if you are a larger organisation, to look at them and get in touch with them too. So far that's web and that's e-newsletters. Is there any questions or anything, James or Karen, for me to pick up on before I move forward into the wonderful world of social media?
No, nothing coming through the chat at the moment. From my take, Kate, these are brilliant. They're short, sharp snapshots of really key takeaway, positive, useful tools that people can use. So hopefully everyone's feeling the same. Give me the thumbs up if you are on reactions at the bottom. Cool, excellent. So I think we're on the right lines, Kate. So brilliant. If you can move on into social media and we'll do the same, and then following this, we'll have a break. Thanks,
Great.
Kate.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. And if you do have any questions, just pop them into the chat so that we can pick them up going forward. So as I say, the next piece is this piece around social media. And it's still that kind of hyped area, isn't it? It's still that thing of, oh, I've got to be on social, I've got to do something in that space. But my real kind of challenge back to you is only go on the channels that work for you. Don't think you've got to spread yourself thinly across everything, but try and fail on all of them. Give it a go. So get a sense of actually, where are your clients? If they're younger, they are in Instagram, they are in Snapchat, they are in TikTok, they are in Twitch. Has everyone had a play with Twitch? If not, that's your homework. Have a look at it and give it a go. But have a look at some of those and say, is that where we should be? If they're older, look at Facebook. Look at WhatsApp, look at YouTube. Well, YouTube pretty much is that universal piece that is for everyone. But really think about Facebook. If they're primarily female, look at Pinterest. So just have a kind of a rational look at all of those channels and think which ones suit our audience. Have a go, fail, be prepared to fail, and move on. And once you've got that secret recipe of what works, keep building within that space. But keep an eye on the fact that it's always changing. This time last year, TikTok, we'd just about heard of it. We started to do crazy dances. But now we're in that space of TikTok being one of the biggest advocacy channels out of any of our social media spaces. So keep an eye on those changes. As I say, Facebook is a great space for those older people. It's still a growing space there. And interestingly, recent statistics are showing that the baby boomer generation is the one that consumes the most social media content online. A lot of the time, they don't realize they're actually consuming it, but it's a really interesting one in that space. So don't think that if you work with older people, it's just, it's not for them. Think about using groups. And by this, I mean, think about using local Facebook groups. They are one of the best ways during lockdown that people have really come together. And so investigate those, join them, lurk for a while, listen to how that's being worked, what the kind of vibe is within that space, and then start to understand that piece. I've given you a link here for Facebook near you that also gives you those ideas of what the groups are there. Also, look at forums like Mumsnet and hundreds of other forums that are out there. You might not want to create your own forum. What you might want to do instead is actually go onto someone else's and start to create either a thread that's your own, or start to just get involved and build thoughts and ideas within threads that are there. So do that bit of scouting and think, actually, do I need to create my own, or shall we just, our strategy just be engaging within those groups and forums that already exist? And if there's nothing else you take away from today, the critical thing is listening. Within social media, people are telling us what their problems are and what's good about their community and what's bad about their community already through social media. So use it to listen. Go onto Instagram, put in the hashtag of your area, see what's going on. Do the same in Facebook. Do the same in Twitter. And just get a sense of all of those things that are happening that we might therefore want to promote or get involved with or support. So as a little thing to do, start following all of those people that you find within that space. On Instagram, even if you just set up your account and followed people within the community that talk about your community, that would be a great way to do it. If you are using Twitter, follow the people that are involved within your community. And if you want to, create a little list of them. So in essence, you can come back to that list and see a filter of all of those people and what they're doing and what they're talking about within the community. Follow the public sector in the community. Follow local influencers. And by local influencers, I don't mean big lipstick and I'm in Dubai local influencers. What I mean is champions, councillors, members, anyone that's in that sort of space as well. And if you'd like to, there are products like Hootsuite or TweetDeck, where we can set up lists of all of these things so they become really easy for us to keep going back to and watching. So this concept of listening as part of community engagement, I think, is a really critical one. And I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on that. So do please put that into chat. There's a little hashtag down there I've also shared called Journo Request, which is a really interesting one where journalists will ask for case studies via that hashtag, particularly in Twitter. So they might be saying, does anyone know of any community groups doing coffee mornings during lockdown? Does anyone know of any exercise groups that have still continued? And those sorts of things, if you answer them, you'll have a great opportunity to get some press around the stuff that you're doing. So using it, even using Twitter, even just as a listening tool, can get you through this stuff. Use hashtags too. I've given you some examples of some hashtags here that are worth looking at, but use them, because what hashtags do across the whole piece now is get you out of just your followership and get you into that wider community. People often ask, how many hashtags should I use? Just giving you a little guide here. Not too many in Twitter, loads in Instagram, loads in Pinterest, and quite a few in YouTube would be my answer. So start to use them, and what you'll start seeing is your followership will start to increase because people are finding you via those hashtags. So be brave, look for them, include them, and just see how people engage with you much more because you're using them. There's a fantastic report that came out a month or so ago now called The Social Reset. And I think this is a really, really important piece for all of us, because what it's talking about is young people and everyone has changed the way they're using social media. And I hope you think it's changing for the better. What's almost happened during lockdown is that people have reevaluated how they're using it. And it's not been such a reflection on people's own lives, but more a place to connect and belong to a tribe. And so I'm keen that we start thinking about how we could use it in this way. So again, I'll give you the link to this report, have a good old dig around it, but there are 6 key areas within there. I'm not going to talk about all 6 today, but I'm going to give us just a few oversights to it. The first piece is the concept of the simple life. And this is really interesting. This is psychology. This is what happens in any crisis. What happens is we revert back. We revert back to traditions. And what we're seeing is actually people reverting back to gardening, cooking, crafting, all of those kinds of things. So this idea of our community wanting and it being trendy to want to plant and want to do and want to be creative is a really important piece for us. I'm working with a group in Cornwall at the moment who are sending out sewing kits for the spring, SOW, sewing kits for the spring, and then creating a group around actually people planting and taking photos and building that stuff up. What a great piece for a forum to be able to share and put your photos up going forward. It creates a connection and creates a rationale over a period of time. So this idea of thinking of ways in which we can build that simplicity back into our community engagement is a really important piece. Gardening on TikTok is huge. So look at some of that stuff, see how people are using it. In the same way, if you remember or if you've seen in Facebook, they do the cooking stuff, which is I put this in, I make that, and suddenly I've created this. Those kinds of things. It's exactly the same in the gardening piece on TikTok. So again, trying to look at that, there is a certain aesthetic that sits with it. But once you understand that, you can really pick this up. And what I really like about TikTok is it doesn't require followers for you to go viral. So quite quickly, you could get something that works, something that people share, and quite quickly you could get 100,000 shares really, really easily if you get the right environment. So have a look at it and get a sense of whether that works for you or not. If you don't know much about TikTok, ask your friends or children or someone to show you, but really dig into this idea of the simple life. The other one I wanted to share with you, which I think is really fascinating, is this idea of practical advocacy. This idea that what we're now seeing young people doing is they're using their space, particularly on Instagram, to actually share their beliefs. And often it's about environmental, often it's about Black Lives Matters, often it's about female empowerment, but actually tapping into that could be really powerful. So look at some of that stuff, follow some of the younger people in your community and get a sense of what's important to them. This idea of listening again is really, really valuable. And I see a lot of young people at the moment, 21 to 28, who are setting up new Instagram pages all around something they really believe in. There's one called Climate Clique, there's one called Food for Good, all of those kinds of ones where people are they just want to share that knowledge that they've been learning about and their passions. So look at that and tap into that and see what works for you. I think that was that was the last bit I was going to say on that. So have a look at that report, get that sense of social media and how it's grown up now and the way in which you might change your relationship with it and how you might therefore use it in different ways for community engagement with social. The other bit I was going to say about was community action platforms within social. So there's product called Nextdoor, which I'm sure some of you have seen, worth having a dig around and having a look at. It's working generally at the moment better in urban environments, but I'd be keen to see that work within the more rural communities as well. And obviously, things like the Cornwall link, Karen, that you described earlier, is a great platform that you can add community listings, you can connect within there, you can start to build stuff in there, and it's becoming a really active environment. So having a look within that piece too is great. And if you want to, you can build your own. The guys that are behind the Cornwall link, I've just shared a little link to them there as well. So that's my piece around social. Obviously, social is a really huge kind of space, but I just wanted to get you thinking about ways and maybe different ways to approach social media than we've been talking about beforehand. Number 4 on my list, we're nearly there before a coffee break, is video conferencing. And this obviously has become a new thing on our radar for community engagement, but it's probably one of the most important ones at the moment. And as I've said, what I've seen with particular with older people is Zoom was a bit of an anathema originally, but they were very happy to communicate via WhatsApp video or via Messenger video as that first piece. What we've now seen is them moving over to Zoom, having become a bit more confident with that. So actually, I'm showing you here the 3 kind of key contenders with video conferencing. But if it is only a small group of people, then Messenger and WhatsApp can be really useful as well. But obviously, the big 3, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet. Zoom is by far the easiest for most people who aren't technical to access because it is, very easy to access, browser based. But now both Teams and Meet, you can do the same. And I was working with a client last week who has hearing loss, and we used Google Meet really successfully because actually all 3 of these now have brilliant closed caption options within them to share and use within that space. But if you're going to do something bigger, if you want to be, bigger and bolder with this stuff as well, don't forget that Microsoft Teams now has a live events version as well, which is full, proper video conferencing, full webinar piece. So we don't need to buy extra products and services anymore for this. Any of us can just set up a live. And what this means is that we're able to have multiple presenters, we can do streaming, and we can have 10,000 attendees if we want to. So it's a great kind of platform for that piece. One of the things, though, I found working with particularly younger people is they don't like looking at themselves. They really struggle. And also some of our more vulnerable adults don't like looking at themselves. And I just thought it's worth mentioning that for all of us, one of the things we can do is click on the 3 dots next to us and we can hide our self view. So what that means is that our video is still presenting our camera. So everyone else is seeing us, but we don't have to see ourselves. There's a report that came out recently that said that actually the reason we're stressed when we're on video conferencing calls is a huge part of our brain is processing what we look like. And so therefore our brain doesn't have much more space to do anything else. So if you're working with people with autism, learning difficulties, or younger people within that, if you encourage them to use this hide self-view option, it means they've got a much better chance of getting involved and getting supported. Just so that you know, when that hide self-view, you've used it, top right, where it says presenter view, then there'll be a new little feature there that says show self-view so that you can toggle it on and off. Just a little thing, but I think incredibly useful. And in a session recently, I was talking to a client who had 5 extra attendees on a call because they could hide themselves. So that was a really useful piece. And also I just wanted to share with you this fantastic product called Hopin. I don't know if anyone's used Hopin. Do pop it into the chat if you have. But Hopin is like Zoom or Meet or Teams, but it's much more flexible. It's more like a conference. So you can have an expo area where you can showcase some things that are going on. But then what you do is you can set up drop-in rooms. And so people can fluidly move between those rooms, joining in a conversation here and there. So you might have a room that might have a quiz going on. You might have a room that's got a question and answer. You might have several rooms with speed networking. So someone sits in there and then someone joins them for 5 minutes and then moves on. All of those kinds of things we can emulate within this product called Hopin. So I'd encourage you to have a look at it, have a little play, and maybe even on there, there's some of the live free events that are happening themselves. So if it might be worth you attending one of them, just so that you get a feeling of how it feels very different to things like Zoom and Teams within there. Oh, there's some examples there for you to have a look at. And I'm going to push you a little bit further and say, what about using VR? What about using virtual reality? And what's fantastic now is both Google and Microsoft have pushed this out now for free. Now, what I'm not saying is that you've all got to sit there with the big clunky glasses on and be in that virtual environment world. But what it does mean is we can create our own little rooms, encourage people to come as their avatar and do exercises and work with them. If you've not done this, I would really love you to have a go. On Microsoft, we just download a little product called Alt VR. We can do the same in Google. And then, as I say, we can invite people to it. They can choose their avatar. You know, within Teams, when we click that little heart button or that like button, what happens then is the hearts come out of their hearts. If they're laughing, you can see them laugh. They can move around. They can sit down. They can talk to each other in private chat rooms. All of that within the space of their computer or a virtual headset if they want to. So I'm pushing us deliberately, particularly if you work with young people, to say, let's try this out. If it failed, fine, let's move on. But have a go with it. Also within the Google VR environment, there's a brilliant space that allows you to use Google Street View and pin things to it. So if you're doing an engagement piece around the landscape or around a particular street, you could actually pin particular points of interest and get them to communicate and build that stuff up as well. So have a little play with both of those if you're able to. That's your homework. But also what we'll be moving back to is this kind of space of what we're going to call this hybrid environment, where some people might come to a meeting, but some people might not want to come to that meeting. And this product here we've been playing with now for a few months called Owl. It's about this tool. It's a fab little thing. It's got a speaker, and at the top it's got a 360 camera. And as somebody speaks in the meeting, the camera moves to them, zooms in, and then when someone else speaks, the camera moves to them, zooms in, and so on. So if someone's at home, they're seeing a much more interesting environment, and they're able to really see and hear really well. But also the people within that meeting have a great speaker so that they can hear that stuff too. So have a play. They're about £1,000. They're a bit expensive, but if you can go for a funding pot somewhere, they're worth having a play with, because it will save you buying lots of expensive video conferencing kit, which we're talking £5,000 to £8,000, to be able to create some hybrid environments. It might be one of those things you buy and share with other community groups too. Just pause for a second there. Any questions on video conferencing or social before I move on to my last little bit? Got 5 minutes to go. Any questions, James or Karen?
Thanks.
Coming up in the chat?
Thanks, Kate. We've got some specific questions around. One on is Hopin free? Is that a free version?
There's a part of it that's free, and then there's prices, but it's not too expensive. I'll just check that over the coffee break, actually.
Yeah, no problem. Just quickly having a scan through some of the questions. Nothing that specific, but we can have a look at them over the break as well and come back to. But this is great. Thanks, Kate.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the last piece I wanted to share with you is this idea of how do we create ideas, how do we create content? Because one of the things that's really important when we're doing community engagement is actually it's not all verbal. It might be we want to create an ebook. We might want to create a document. We might want to create a brochure. All of those kinds of things that we can share out with people that they can read or digest beforehand. So one of the products that's fantastic and is free is called Canva. I'm sure lots of you have used that already, but I would encourage you to look at some of the templates that it has got within there, because one of the great ones is ebooks. So it enables you to create. So if you were going to create a report or something you wanted people to read, have a look at the ebooks within there. But also, as I say, it helps you to be able to do some creative stuff quite quickly and easily. Also, if you're a 365 user, or there is a product you can use in Google as well, which allows you to do what we call screen capture. And this is a really useful one if you want to show people how to do something, how to get onto a Zoom, how to fill out this form, how to apply for something. You can click record screen. And there is, as I say, a little plugin for Chrome called Screencastify that allows you to click record screen, and then all of your actions are recorded, along with an audio as well, so that you can speak at the same time. These are the sorts of things that used to take us forever to do, but now they take us 10 minutes. So really useful ways to create content if it's a helpful one. Quizzes. We all love a quiz. Well, we got a bit sick of them, didn't we, by about June last year? But actually, we can create quizzes quite quickly and easily now. There's a product on BuzzSumo that allows you to create them, and also on BuzzFeed, where you can create these for free. So have a little play with that. And it might just be something that you do for a bit of fun, rather than something that might be terribly deep and interesting. But it might give you some insights to stuff that you might not have thought of before. Here we go. This is the BuzzFeed one. So you can just quickly create your own quiz within there and share that piece. And also just got some ideas in terms of, we talked about coffee breaks and those sorts of things, but just some other ideas in terms of building that social connection for us going forward. The first one is what we call a fika, which is a Swedish phrase, but basically means a coffee break, but a coffee break with no agenda. It's about being able to chat and socialize within that piece. I quite like the language of it, quite like what it means. And there's some loads of information online about how to build and create these virtual fikas, which I think is quite an interesting one. So first challenge, a virtual fika. Second challenge, one of my favorite things that I've only just discovered, coffee roulette, which is where you put in the diary, or you invite people to a coffee morning or a coffee session. It might be 10 or 15 minutes. They don't know who they're going to meet. When they turn up in the room, it's like those chance encounters that we have when we meet in person. You might give them a subject to talk about or not, but that idea of doing something that's a bit more fun, they would need to have trust in you as an organisation to do this. But we've been doing it within a governor's setting, and it's been really fantastic. Obviously, Karen's talked through the idea of the virtual village hall. But one of the things I really like about this is some of these are timed, but some of them are actually there available for you whenever you want them. So in effect, they're on demand. And I think this is a great one for you to be able to set up, let's say, a Wednesday craft session, but actually they are run by Daphne, who's the craft tutor, and you just click on the video and start the session. You can be there as a facilitator, but you don't have to actually teach it. So using those resources in that way, I think, are a great way to get some of this happening. There's Daphne. I'm quite looking forward to doing Daphne's session. So have a look at that. And also think about other craft and art activities. There might be some local community craft environments that are already doing this stuff and have stuff that you can send out in the post. But again, it's a really lovely thing to do within that space. This is one that one of my friends has been doing, paper flower workshops that have been really successful.
2 minutes, Kate.
Thanks. My favorite one that's been happening called Weber Bars, which is a bar. So the idea is that you bring your own drink. Obviously, again, this will be in a trusted environment, and actually have some thoughts around just starting to build maybe more broader conversations, or it might be something that's within an evening space. And open calls. The idea of just having a call where you're just literally no agenda for a long period of time, chatting through that space. Lunchtime learning. I'm going to quickly flick through these polls and surveys. But yes, don't forget accessibility with all of this stuff. So I'm going to talk about this after the break. But one of the things I'd be really keen for you to all look at is particularly within the Microsoft products, there is an area for all of them to check the accessibility of the documents you create. So click on that and see whether the documents you are creating are accessible or not. There's a brilliant also product called Office Lens. If you've got people that struggle to read or have dyslexia, if you get them to download that, they can then scan the document and it will then read it out loud to them. It's an amazing document. I use it lots myself, but actually a really good product for people who might also be partially sighted, all those kinds of things. That's the end of my slides. So I'll stop there and just any thoughts or questions?
Okay, that's been fantastic from my perspective. That is just one bit from Kate, actually. We've got Kate after the break as well, so I'm sure you're all looking forward to Kate after the break, which is moving on to more around digital tools. So we've just had digital communications, and there's absolutely loads in there that Kate's given us. So I understand that we can't all obviously take that in all at once. So we are recording this. We will share the slides, and so you will be able to go over that after. We're going to quickly go into the break. I'll pass over to you, Karen, just to introduce the break and then what time we're coming back. But thanks, Kate.
So we're going to take a 10-minute break. Many of you might be aware that there is a 1-minute silence at 12 noon today in remembrance of everyone we've lost during COVID. So we wanted the break to cover that. So if you come back for just after 12:05, that would be awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks, Karen.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Down from the door where it began, and I must follow if the road goes ever on and on. Down from the door where it began, how far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I
sun is shining here in Truro. Makes me feel like I'm outside slightly with listening to the birds. I'm looking out that window thinking, crikey, I'd rather be out there. Hopefully everyone can listen to the birds and feel like you are out there. Don't know if it's the same thing. We're actually doing some research in our centre around kind of sounds that you hear and what effects that has on your health and well-being. So really interesting.
It sounds really inspirational when you talk, James, over the music. I'm like, yeah, listen to the birds.
Change of job role, shouldn't I?
Yeah. No. We need you. Right.
Okay, enough of that.
Here's everybody back. Welcome back, everybody.
We haven't got the all-important Kate yet.
No, she signed off.
Just looking for her, actually. Yeah, she's not in, so she might have dropped out.
He does look a bit Lord of the Ringsy, doesn't he?
It's my lockdown hair.
It's that lockdown hair. You should see his feet, man. Right.
Can I just
have we got Kate back?
Or if anyone's got any really key questions,
there you are.
They would really like to know, do start thinking about them, put them in the chat or save them for later, and we will try to get to those. If we don't get to them in the chat, we will certainly respond to you. If anyone's got some really key questions around community building online or starting communities online, do save them up or send them in the chat, and we'll try to respond to them as and when.
Okay, Kate, are you ready for us to hand back over to you?
I am. I'm sorry, my video isn't working. It's chosen just to play up. So no, I hope you can hear me.
That's all right.
Great. I'm just going to.
We can.
Can you see my screen?
We can. It's clear.
Great.
I can, yeah.
Lovely. Fab. Thanks for that. Great. So so I hope that first bit was useful for you, just sort of starting to think about how we can use digital to communicate. What we're going to do is continue within that theme and start thinking about actually the tools that we've got available to us, some for free, some that we might already be paying for, and how we start to build on that as well. And a little bit also about devices as well and connectivity. So I hope I'll get through all of this within the time we've got available. But the first piece I wanted to talk about was to say, are you using what you've already got? Some of you might be using 365, so the Microsoft Office 365 piece that you might subscribe to. Some of you might be using Google Suite. And if you're a startup organization, then the Google Suite, which actually has changed its name now to Google Workspace, might be an easier one for you to use because the initial piece is free. But within both of these, one of the things I hope as you're looking at the screen you're starting to see is there's loads of other stuff in there that you probably haven't used or played with. So a few things just to think about. The first thing is Forms. And this is available both in the Google and the Microsoft products. And in essence, what it allows us to do is we don't have to use SurveyMonkey anymore. We don't have to pay for that stuff. We can just do it ourselves. So with both of them, there are some templates we can use. One of the ones that I think is fantastic in Google, and I think it's in Microsoft as well, is called Find a Time. So that piece where you think, oh, I need to organize a meeting time and who's available for what. Instead of that, just chuck up a little form, send everyone the link. They can just tick the ones that are available, and then you can create a session, an invite. You could also do it for feedback forms, for quizzes, for questionnaires, any of that sort of stuff you can build, and it's all free built within there. Within Microsoft Forms, they've got a great space for quizzes as well, which is used a lot now in education, so it's quite intuitive. But again, if you want to do something that's either light-hearted or something about learning, then both of those things are available there too. Just some other bits there. But one I quite like as well is a form called Typeform. And this one is just really beautifully created. So has the options like the Microsoft and Google versions, but has also really lovely templates. The transitions are nice. It just feels like a very different space, and also can integrate into your website quite well too. So if you want to have a look at Typeform, have a play with it, and also you can take payment from it as well. So one community group I've been working with are using Typeform for lunches, lunch delivery, and clients are able to pay through Typeform for that as well. If you're looking at taking bookings, then obviously don't forget the obvious ones like Eventbrite. It does have charity and not-for-profit pricing, which is worth having a look at. But the thing about Eventbrite that works incredibly well is it's not just a booking app. It also has an area where it advertises the events if you want it to. It advertises the events that you're running. Quite often for us, a lot of people have found our workshops because they're on Eventbrite. So thinking about using it as a communication space as well as that event booking piece is really useful to play with. Inside Office 365 also, there is a bookings app. So have a look at it. More basic than Eventbrite, but it does allow you to be able to, if for example, oh, have I just gone off online?
No, we've got you, Kate.
You're still there. Sorry, something's happened with my system, so I might join twice in a second, so just bear with me.
Yeah, we've just seen you come back in, but we can hear you. You're clear.
Okay, that's great. So, I'm going to be doubling up. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all clear and only once.
Okay, I can hear myself, which is incredibly weird. So hang on.
I can boot you out as the second one that's come in.
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks,
that'd be
James.
brilliant. Thank you. That's great. So within I'm going to take that off. So within 365, what we can, as I say, what we can do is if someone wants an appointment with us, they're able to, you can send out this little invite. It looks like a web screen. They choose the time and date. They submit it. It goes into your inbox. It goes into your calendar as a event. And then if they want to change it, they go back to that screen and change it. So it's a really, really simple way of you being able to tell people or just to get people booking in sessions with you. Similar thing that we can use inside Google called Calendly, and again, free for us to use. It integrates actually with all sorts of stuff and has slightly more functionality than the 365 one as well. The other thing that I'm keen for you to have a look at, which I think is fab in both Google and in 365, are these little intranet sites or internal sites. So these aren't websites to go out to the general public, but you can build, within the space of a couple of hours, a little website for your project. Because if your team might be dispersed amongst lots of locations, you can then have a little website that's got all of the key information on it. It might have a calendar integrated in it. It might have all the files that everyone needs. Those things of finding the right logo for something and all of those sorts of things. All of that stuff can be together within these internal sites. So in Google, it's called Google Sites. And within 365, it's called Communication Sites. And both of those are really powerful, and they're a great way also to work with either donors or funders to be able to ship information to and from each other. I know I'm going through this quite quickly, but these are a great one to have a little dig around and spend some time with. Also inside 365 specifically, there's a fab product called Microsoft Sway. And this is fab for creating those books or those annual reports, or social impact reports, those sorts of things. And you can just literally copy and paste from Word or PowerPoint into Sway, and it builds an interactive report environment that looks like you've spent ages and ages doing it. So you click on it and things slide in and out. If you've added in an Excel spreadsheet, it becomes interactive. So people can hover over the bar chart and they can see dates and times. You can create little slides that move over each other. You can add in video from Stream within there as well. So if you're thinking about building some learning materials, or as I say, annual reports, have a look at Sway. Anyone can open them. It doesn't need to be just people who have a Microsoft account. So they're great in terms of those resources for clients, as well as for funders. This was just a little aside that I wanted to share with you, because I think this is the best thing since sliced bread, is that now within Google and within 365, we can dictate everything. So it's incredibly powerful, and it works within Word, within PowerPoint, and within OneNote, and within emails, and the same within the Google piece. So when we're writing reports, let's stop writing them, let's just dictate them. It's 3 times quicker to dictate than it is to write. So that's just my little tip for today for you. So those were just some bits I wanted to share with you inside the 365 and the Google kind of environment within there. The next bit I just wanted to pick up is about CRMs. And a CRM, for those of you that don't know, is basically a database where you keep client information or prospective client information. And when we start out in community groups, we might just use a spreadsheet. But actually, over time, what we might need to do is to actually build that into something that's a little bit more than that. And CRMs now aren't these hugely expensive, cumbersome things they used to be. They can be lightweight and they can be free. So there's lots and lots of CRMs out there to have a look at. But the ones I would draw your attention to that are worth playing with is HubSpot, which is free for up to a certain number of people within there, and Capsule, which is free for 2 users, and Zoho, which is free for 5 users. Excuse me, I'm going to call. So all 3 of those you could start to play with and get a sense of whether a CRM would be useful for you as an organization or not. CRMs these days aren't just about storing customer information. They're also about how you communicate. They hold all of the communication back from your client, so you can see what information's in there, and also you can push out marketing stuff as well. There's lots of systems we can use for fundraising as well. So there's some specific CRMs that have been built for fundraising that I've given you a list of here. The ones that are cheaper are Donify and Blackboard. Those 2 are the cheaper ones. But also, if you offer maybe counselling services or mental health services, look for a CRM that has specific support for that client confidentiality. And this is one product that has that, called Lamplight, where the areas that you store that sort of information are encrypted and stored safely and separate from the rest of the information inside the system. I'm just going to pause there. Any questions or commentary before I move forward on that piece? James, if you can hear me.
Yeah, no specific questions as such. Again, I just think it's really useful. I think everyone's trying to take it all in and maybe write some notes. So we might have some questions at the end. So if we keep going, feel free to type up anyone if you have got any questions. But yeah, keep going, Kate. I think it's great.
Fab. Thank you. So the next bit I wanted to share is that when we're on calls like this, it's about thinking, how can we interact with people in a better way as well? And Karen shared already the Mentimeter piece, which I've got in here, but I've just got a few others that might be worth thinking about as well. The first one is Kahoot. This one we use a lot within our learning environment, which I think is a fantastic product. The basic one is free. And what we can do is, if we've done some learning or if we've done a a session, you can set up a little Kahoot quiz. And a bit like how we did with Mentimeter, you can ask questions, you can get responses. But what I like about the Kahoot one is the colours represent the answers. So again, for people who might not be able to read very well, it's a really easy one to respond to. And they also get a little league table, so it becomes a really fun piece and a fun environment to play with. So Kahoot is a really great one. Mentimeter that Karen's shown you, she's shown you the word cloud part of it, but there's 10 other bits that we can use in there: polling, quizzes, Q&As, all sorts of stuff we can use within Mentimeter. So if you're hosting a larger session, that one's really useful. But also Slido, which is another product very similar to Mentimeter. And again, this has some free areas of it and other areas that are paid for, but again, allows you to do those Q&As and word clouds. This is one that I really like as well, called Padlet. And Padlet is a bit like a notice board, a cork board. And what we can do within this is we can tag maybe news articles that might be of interest, or you can see there one that I've been using is a half marathon training one, where you can put up information. You can either type information in or share stuff, or maybe lesson plan responses, all of those kinds of things. We can build just simply on Padlet. We can either keep them private to our group that we're using, or we can share them out to the public. So if you're thinking about a particular town or an area that you work in, you could actually create news or put up all the news items that relate to that particular town. So you're curating that information into that space, or well-being, or all those sorts of things. So Padlet is a great one to have a look at and play with. And again, it's free for as many as you want. And another one I really like is called Jamboard. This is a Google product, but we can all use it for free. We're able to simply create a whiteboard, and you can see on the left-hand side there the little tools. You can use Post-it notes, and everyone can pile in and post everything they want to within that space. So it's a brilliant one to be able to do consultation, asking questions, getting people moving on it. What people also like about this is that they don't have to speak out their issues. They're able to just put them up, and it's anonymous. So, as I say, a really fab product from that sort of space. If you're thinking about more curated and longer, more detailed conversations that might be much more consultative, then this product Lumio might be really useful. It allows you to track decisions and discussions in a way that you can then record that and save that for later. So if it's a governance thing, or it's something that's more ponderous and a bigger thing, if you were doing like developing a community plan or a spatial plan, those sorts of things, Lumio would be a brilliant kind of virtual environment to share those things on. And if you're doing project work or ideas or action plans, then Trello might be an interesting one for you. So again, free for us to use. We can create lists, we can create boards, we can create little cards and Post-it notes on those. And again, keep moving those around and keep things being interactive. So those are just some of the tools I wanted to share with you in terms of that idea of getting things going in that virtual world that isn't just voice related in that piece. The next thing I wanted to talk about, though, was QR codes. Now, again, you might be thinking, Kate, you've gone back 5 years within this, but because we're now living in this world of touchless technologies, QR codes have really come to the fore. And in China, I read a stat last week saying in China, 80% of payments and activities are all now done through QR codes. So it's a really interesting piece for us because QR codes we can use on paper, but we can also use in a digital space. So if we want someone in a session to go to something or to look at something on their phone, make a QR code. They can just literally show their phone to the screen with their camera app open, and it will take them to that place. So we could use them in lots of different ways. We can generate our own QRs by going to QR code generator. We just put in the web address or whatever it is within there, and then that becomes our unique QR code, and then we can use that wherever we want to. So think about places where you might like to use this, applications, feedback forms, alternative language, or accessibility options. If you're doing if you've got a social impact report, you might want to have a QR code on every presentation you do so that everyone can easily access that. All of those sorts of things are really, really useful options for QR codes. It also might be useful for the clients that you work with. So we've been working with a learning differences charity, and they're now doing QR codes for their clients as key rings, so that if they get lost or they're stressed out and about, anyone can just scan that QR code and then they see the contact details of the person they need to speak to, or what the process is for them, or those kinds of things. So thinking about it in that broadest sense, I think, is a really interesting one to have a play with. I want to move quickly on to devices, getting us thinking about what devices are fit, not just for us, but for our clients. Because one of the things we really understand, and Stephen must see this a lot as well, is the idea that our clients often can't afford the devices that we expect them to have, or that government particularly expect them to have as well. But now there are some fantastically, I'll come back to that one, some fantastically low-priced products that actually do work well for them, or can work well for them. The first one I wanted to share was Fire tablets. So the Amazon tablets that are out there, they're about £100. They are very intuitive, and for someone who maybe just wants to use a browser, they work really well. If they have got Prime subscription, it works even better, because it's a brilliant device to be able to watch video on. So, if it's one that's useful for them in that space, then the Fire tablets are really good. Also, you might want to think about some of the cheaper tablets, some of the Samsung Galaxy tablets. Some of them have a 4G card enabled inside them, which means that they don't need to have broadband at home. And this is a real kind of issue for a lot of people who can't afford broadband. That means that they can't afford technology at all. But actually, some of the Galaxy tabs are called LTE, which means that they're able to have a data card inserted. We can now buy data-only SIM cards for between £10 to £20 a month with unlimited data on them. So if they live in an area of low of decent 4G, actually that's good enough for them to be able to then use that successfully within that space. But if you are buying tablets, buy gadgets. Make sure that either they have a Bluetooth keyboard for them as well, or that you think about having a stand as well. These gooseneck stands are fantastic to be able to clip to a chair so that someone can watch or see this without having to hold it, or actually on a desk or a table, and then they can also use a keyboard at the same time. So these things, they're only £20 or £10 each, but they really, really make a difference to people who their only device is a tablet. And these are fantastic for older people, a little beanbag stand, but it means that they can watch comfortably while sitting down, and again, not having to hold it with maybe hands that have arthritis and the likes. Just a couple of phones. I won't go into detail on these, but the Xiaomi phones are really, and they're coming out with some really great reviews now, but they are around that sort of £100 mark. So the Xiaomi Poco is a great one to have a look at, but also the Moto G9s, again, have good reviews. They're obviously not as fantastic as the expensive ones, but they are two really good quality phones to have a play with. But the one thing I also wanted to talk about, and I've got one here to show you, but sadly you can't see my screen, so I can't show you that now, is the Facebook portal. And these are a fab little device. They look like a photo. Do you remember those photo things where we used to put our digital camera card in the side and it would move your photos around? It looks like those, but they are incredibly easy for older people to use to communicate via Facebook Messenger video, WhatsApp video, and Zoom. So instead of us asking them to have to communicate using a laptop and a mouse and a monitor and a this and a that, we can actually dial them into the conversation. So it rings like a phone, they press answer, they're in the coffee morning. Or it can be a little face that says, work out with Ben, and they press that button and they're in the conversation and in there. So this to me is a big game changer for older people. It's also used really well for that environment of open calls, the idea of having it on for 2 or 3 hours just to be able to chat when they want to and not chat when they don't. So I've seen a community group recently having a reading group on a Facebook portal where they're able to have a little chat and then read for a bit and then talk about the book. So thinking about ways in which you could use these to engage is powerful. We're also using these with dementia groups for online reminiscence therapy, and again, the clients are finding it really, really easy to use. So I'd advocate having a look at the likes of Facebook portal or the Amazon Alexa Spot environments, which again are very similar to these. As I say, if someone doesn't have broadband, it's not the end of the world. Using a tablet with a 4G SIM in there is useful, but also you can purchase for them a MiFi unit. So that's £30–40. And again, a little SIM card goes into it. That creates a hotspot, a Wi-Fi environment, and then they're able to carry on in exactly the same way as anyone with broadband. These MiFi units, again, are a game changer for people on UC or for older people who can't afford the broadband connection. I'll pause there a second again. Any questions or queries or thoughts around devices or QR codes?
Again, nothing specific, Kate. I think you've touched on some really good points, and like you've said, you're only highlighting just maybe a few of these things. So if people want to go into further detail around some topic areas, feel free to contact us at the end or ask some questions at the end, and we can explore those with you, for you, in collaboration with you, so we can help you find the right tools that might suit your situation. But no, it's great. Thanks, Kate.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. So this is the last little bit I really wanted to cover with you, and this is about thinking about ways in which we could use apps to build particularly health and well-being within the space. And the first thing I was going to advocate is that on the NHS website now, they have a big NHS apps library, and these apps have therefore been approved by the NHS. They're not NHS apps, but they have been approved. So they are ones that are fairly safe for you to suggest and talk to people about within there. You can see the categories that are there. So some around memory, some around health, healthy living, some around some particular conditions pieces that are worth looking at. There's some brilliant ones on sleep as well. So having a look at some of these and being able to offer advice on some of these could be a really useful piece for you to do. In fact, building your own app library using Sway would be a great thing to do for your own client cohort, ones which might be relevant to them, some sleep ones, some food ones, some all of those sorts of things could be good. So this is the sleep one particularly that I'm just highlighting there within the NHS one. The other thing to say is don't ignore the power of what's already on YouTube in this space. So the example I've given you here is one of my favorites, which is Bob and Brad, who do older people exercises. It's very American, but it's absolutely hilarious and really great fun. So I picked this one up because an older person I met was telling me that they had found this on YouTube. After watching a church service, this appeared as the next thing that came up. And then they do it every day. So I was thinking is a great kind of concept to actually use some of the YouTube environments within there, and as a way to encourage people to be able to do that fitness piece alongside things like the virtual village hall and those sorts of pieces. The piece I think is really interesting, and we're doing this with the Housing Association at the moment, is virtual challenges. And the idea with this is that actually we can get people out and about using either a little Fitbit or whatever they've got to be able to monitor their steps and to develop either an idea of where they're traveling together as a community and count those steps up, or using one of the platforms that does that automatically for you. So as a business, we've recently walked the Route 66 in America. So every week we've just popped our steps that we've done for that week into a form using Microsoft Form. And then one of our colleagues has worked out where we are next. So those kinds of things work incredibly well. But also we've been building the concept with the Housing Association on the Golden Olympics. So thinking about, ways in which we can encourage that kind of participation. But this one here is a particular app. And what this allows you to do is automatically add it to the pins on the map. So you can decide what you're going to do, walk the Inca Trail, hike Mount Everest. It might just be walk to Falmouth, whatever it is. And it's built into the app. So the steps are automatically included. And what is fantastic is Street View is built into it as well. So they click on the pin and they can see exactly where they are and look around and get a sense of where they are. So it's and there's a community in there as well. You can just type in hi, you can send photos of your daily walks, and all of that sort of thing starts to build up within there. So this particular one's called Conqueror. But there's another one that's free for 10 people to participate in, which is called Challenge Hound. So this might be a good one for you to have a play with, maybe encourage a few people to do it, decide your challenge, and then get people to track their progress. And what I really love about this is digital at its best. It's about digital bringing people together, even though they are remote within that space. And the last thing to say is obviously using apps for safety within this piece. So just recognizing that actually we need to make sure that people are safe out and about. And this is a fantastic app to use. It's called Be Safe. It's free. And it allows us, once we've downloaded it onto our phones, we can press a button to say, track me, which sends a little signal to one of your friends and says, track me for 30 minutes. Or there's an SOS button within there and various other things as well. But it's a really clever app, and it's worth, if you are encouraging people to be out and about and doing that stuff, it's worth having a play with and understanding that bit as well. So I think that's all of my slides. I've given you a massive download, I think, today of everything that's in my brain. I hope that's useful and helpful. Any thoughts or questions going forward?
Thank you, Kate. That's brilliant. We've got one direct question actually on the Facebook portal, and I know you've got one there, so hopefully you'll be able to answer it. Do you need a Facebook account to be able to use the portal?
It's a great question. You do and you don't. So there's two ways you can do it. One is having a Facebook account, which is obvious. The other one is using what's called Facebook Workplace. And this product has different privacy. It's free for charities to use, but it also means you can manage all of the accounts in a better way as well. So you can use it in both ways. We've set it up for the Dementia Alliance using the workplace version rather than the other piece.
Thank you, Kate. Any final questions before Kate finishes on digital communications or digital tools, essentially? Feel free to save the questions, but you can unmute yourself and we can have a chat with you over this call. So if anyone's got any specific questions for Kate just before she goes, now is your opportunity, but we can get back to you if you need to.
I'm also keen to hear anything that you find is useful as well, or any thoughts you might have that you want to share as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, Kate. So yeah, following the event, we'll ask if there's anything in particular that you want to focus more on, because we're really only hitting the kind of top level stuff on these topic areas. if there's anything that anybody wants to particularly look at, we can make another one of these just on those specific areas. If there is a consensus of an area or topic area that people want to go into. Okay, a big round of applause to Kate. Thank you, Kate. It's been super useful. We will share your slides, share this recording following, because there's an awful lot of information in there. And I'm sure all of us want to share this with our colleagues. And so we can do that. But a big thank you. Kate's going to be leaving us now. And so once again, a big thank you to Kate, and back over to Karen Spooner. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Nice to meet
thank
everyone,
you.
and look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm sorry I've got to disappear.
Take care,
Thanks
and
a lot.
thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay, I wanted to touch upon funding just for a minute, because it was one of the things that came up in the sort of pre-questions that we sent out for our original date in February. It's a massive beast, and I've sort of created a document that I'm going to send out after this session with some ideas. Some are quite unique and involve signing up to news sort of letters from grant organisations. So I will send that out, and that will be in the post-webinar email for you. You'll be pleased to know that we are coming to the end. You guys have done awesome. I know it's a long time to sit and listen, so thank you for that. What I'd like to do is just have a quick think about what's really stuck out for you today in terms of learning, what's been useful, and what will you take away today. So we're going to go back over to Menti. So we're going to go to www.menti.com, and you can do that on your phone if you have one with you, or if you want to use your current device, you'll have to open a new window. And the code is 5073 5825. So that's menti.com 5073 5825. Do yell if it's not working, because I know we had an issue earlier with my screen share. So what will you take away as a result of today's session? Any immediate actions or thoughts, phrases, tools? What stuck out for you? Is everyone managing to get online there? Amazing. Here they come. Thank you. So the bigger the word, the more people have said it. And again, this is a really great tool for you guys to use as well if you're wanting to gauge feeling of groups you're working with. Quizzes to try. Yeah, Sway is awesome. Screen capturing, online interacting tools, young people and social media. Ideas, digital tools, Trello, everything. I think that's all that's going to come in. So thank you. I think we've hopefully hit the nail on the head in terms of your original questions. Here we go, reviewing our website. All amazing. Thank you. 365. Yeah, what's already available to us? I've made loads of notes today. My mind's been entirely blown, actually. So I need to go and have a look at all the stuff that I've already got, actually, and how I can make better use of that. Does anyone want to say anything or ask any questions before we wind up today?
I think what's quite hard
Right.
when
Yep.
Hold on.
Heidi. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't remember how to stick my
Go,
hand up.
Heidi.
When's
Okay, go
the recording going to be made available?
So can you hear me?
James, when's the recording going? Yep.
And so as soon as this downloads, it's a big old recording because we've been sat here for quite a while, as we could all probably tell from the numb bum that we all have. But we can,
Yeah.
as soon as it downloads, I will basically make it available, and I will get all the resources from everyone, and we will send it out to all that have participated. So I will share that. And what we'll do is we'll probably put it on the Smartline website in order for you to actually access it, because it will be such a large file, you won't be able to send it around. So it will be a link to probably YouTube where you'll view it via there. What we'll try to do as well is make sections in there. So if you, on the YouTube link, if you want to search for a particular bit, like you want to jump to digital tools or you want to jump to the coastline case study, we will put down what point in the video which you need to jump to. And that might be really useful for actually when trying to figure out which bits do you want to go to.
She looks like Helen.
Thank you, James, for that. So by the end of this week,
Oh,
do we
is
think,
it?
or early next
Yeah,
week?
yeah. Yeah, she does, yeah.
Oh, definitely by the end of this week. Yeah.
Perfect. So the last thing to say really is to reiterate what James said about, if you feel like actually I'd like to learn more about this, or you didn't quite touch on this and we'd like to know some stuff about that, do let us know. James, my email or your email?
Either or. So yeah, or the Smartline one even.
Oh yeah,
Both of
so
them in 2 previous jobs.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Just drop us an email and we'll look at how we can support you to access more learning. So that's it really from us, just to say thank you so much for taking time out to come and see us. Hope it's been useful, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you hopefully sometime in the future.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
And I know what everyone's asking for is the Hobbit music to end with, aren't they? So let me
That's
just
it.
get the Hobbit music,
Get
and
your
then you
flutes
can all
out.
leave.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have it to hand actually, but it's
Oh,
been lovely.
James.
Oh,
Thank you,
I'll
though.
quickly try and get it.
I'll hang around
Thank you,
till
everyone.
find it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye all. Thank you.